Welcome to Aliens Shadowware. Sci-fi thrives, and humanity survives. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a gripping tale from the edge of the unknown where humans stand tall, no matter the darkness. The capture asterisk, the cold wind moved across the rocky moon like a silent scream. Sharp and biting, carrying dust that never settled, Lieutenant Mark Holloway pulled his jacket tighter, his boots crunching on the strange silver-gray stones as he scanned. The horizon behind him, the crashed Earth shuttle, lay broken, its left wing half buried in a crater, smoke rising into the pale orange sky like a warning. They weren't supposed to be here. The moon, called Viron by alien charts, was marked off-limits by the Galactic Council. Too close to a war zone and too full of old stories that humans were better off not knowing. But a malfunction in the ship's AI had brought them down here. And now they were stuck. "Still no signal from command," said Jenna, the pilot, checking her wrist. "This place is dead." Mark didn't answer. His eyes had caught movement near the canyon wall ahead, a shadow, low and fast. Disappearing behind a jagged rock, he raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. The wind howled. Again, louder this time, almost like a voice. "What is it?" whispered Torres, the medic, his fingers gripping the handle of his scanner. "Something moved," Mark replied, pulling out his sidearm. "We're not alone." They moved carefully, weapons ready, past strange rock formations that looked almost like bones. As they neared the spot where the shadow had vanished, Torres stepped forward with his scanner. It beeped once, then again, faster. The signal was weak, but real life form detected. Mark nodded. They circled the rock and found the small cave behind it, just large enough for a person to squeeze through. The opening was covered in a strange moss, glowing slightly blue in the dark. Mark crouched down and peeked inside. The cave went deep, farther than expected. He motioned for light. Torres handed him a low-beam torch. Mark switched it on and entered. The others followed slowly. Their boots crunched on dry alien soil. Inside, the temperature was warmer, and the air felt almost damp. Then they heard something, a small cough, shaky and dry, like someone trying not to be heard. Mark froze. Then he saw her. Curled against the far wall of the cave was a figure, slim and shaking. Her skin was a soft purple, faintly glowing like her moss, and her eyes were wide and full of fear. She was maybe 5 feet tall, draped in tattered cloth that might have once been armor. Her breathing was shallow and blood-black, and thick oozed from a wound on her side. "It's a child," whispered Torres. "No," Jenna corrected. "She's not human." The alien girl tried to crawl back, pressing herself against the stone. Her lips trembled, and her hands shook. She looked at them as if they were monsters. "Please," she whispered in a strange accent. "Make it quick." Mark blinked. "What did she say?" Torres translated. "She thinks we're here to eat her." A silence filled the cave, heavier than the darkness. Jenna lowered her weapon slowly. "She thinks we're predators." Mark knelt down. Placing the light on the ground, he removed his helmet, showing her his face, soft and calm. "We're not going to hurt you," he said slowly. "You're safe now." She flinched. Lies. Torres stepped forward carefully, pulling out a water pack from his belt. "Here," he said, placing it gently on the ground and sliding it toward her. "Drink." The girl looked at it, then at them, and then back at the pack. Her fingers moved with caution, grabbing it like it might explode. She sniffed it, then sipped. Her eyes widened. "Clean water, not poison." Mark noticed the wound on her side. "She's bleeding badly." "I can help," said Torres, "but she has to let me." Mark looked at her again. "We can fix that," he said, pointing gently to her injury. "Can we help you?" She stared at them, unsure. Her body trembled from fear, cold, and confusion. Slowly, she nodded. Torres moved in. speaking softly. His hands were steady as he cleaned the wound and wrapped it. She winced, but didn't fight him when it was done. She looked more confused than relieved, as if waiting for something worse to happen next. "Why didn't you kill me?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. Mark frowned. "Because we don't do that." She shook her head. "Your kind eats us." "No," Mark said firmly. "That's not true." She looked at the cave wall, as if searching for something that made sense. The stories she'd grown up hearing were lies at least. That's what her heart was starting to feel. "What's your name?" Mark asked Ira, she said quietly. He smiled. "Ira? I'm Mark. You're going to be okay." Ira didn't smile back. Not yet, but for the first time in her life, a human didn't strike her, or cage her, or mock her fear. Instead, he gave her water, warmth, and a name to hold on to. And that was the beginning of something no one had expected. Language of survival. The firelight danced across the walls of the cave. But Ira didn't look at it. She kept her eyes on the humans. Sitting a few feet away, her small body wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her mind was spinning. How could they smile after everything? After what she had been taught? After what her elders said about them? Mark sat quietly with his back against a rock, watching her but not moving closer. Torres stirred a pot of warm protein broth on a portable heater. The smell filled the cave with something strange but not unpleasant. Ira had never smelled human food before. It didn't stink like she thought it would. Jenna sat cross-legged, her helmet off, drawing shapes in the dust with a stick. At first, Ira thought they were strange runes. But then she realized they were trying to talk. Jenna pointed to herself and said, "Jenna." Ira blinked, confused. Jenna smiled and pointed again. "Jenna." Then she pointed at Mark and said, "Mark." Then at Torres. Ira's eyes narrowed slightly. She looked down at the dirt where the names were drawn, then pointed to herself, hesitant. "Ira." Jenna clapped softly. "Ira," she repeated, smiling wider. It was the first time Ira had heard her name from a human mouth. It didn't sound cruel. It sounded warm. Mark leaned forward, just slightly, holding up a small tablet screen. On it was an image Earth, blue and green, floating in space. He tapped it, and it rotated slowly, then zoomed in to show mountains, cities, forests, and oceans. Then he tapped another image, families eating together, children laughing, old people dancing in slow motion. Ira stared, her heart confused. These couldn't be the monsters her people feared. She looked into their faces and saw no hunger for her flesh, only something soft she didn't understand. "Earth," Mark said, pointing to the planet on the screen. "Earth," Ira repeated slowly. Then she frowned and tapped her own chest. Valerie Torres smiled. "Your planet?" he asked. She nodded. Her world, Valerie, was full of fear, tradition, and hatred for humans. The great elders told stories of how Earth species tore apart alien tribes, devouring them for power and fun. That's why she had hidden when she saw their ship crash. That's why she thought they would kill her. But now, she was sitting under their heat lamp, drinking their water, eating soft food that didn't make her sick. Her wound was healing, her skin was no longer burning, and most of all, they were still not hurting her. Mark tapped a new screen. A translation program. He pointed to pictures. Sun, fire, cave, food, water. He said the words slowly, and Ira began repeating them. At first, her voice shook, but soon it became smoother, clearer, like a river that had been frozen too long. She tried her words too. She drew the Valerie symbols for light and pain. Mark copied them and smiled, repeating them back with strange human accents. Ira laughed softly for the first time. It was awkward, but it worked. The humans weren't mind readers, but they were patient. And Ayura began to understand something terrifying and beautiful. Maybe the stories were wrong that night. When the others slept, Ayura stayed awake by the fire, staring. At their sleeping forms, her sharp eyes watched every breath, every twitch, waiting for the trap, but none came. No sharp blades in the dark, no cages, no poison gas, just soft snoring and the sound of wind outside. She looked at the stars through the cave opening. Her people believed stars were the eyes of fallen warriors, but now she wondered what if the stars were watchers, waiting for someone to change the truth. Ayura closed her eyes slowly, whispering her thoughts in her own language. If they are not monsters, what are they? In the morning, she woke to find something beside her, a small fruit, purple and round. Just like the ones from Valerie Forests, her heart skipped. She looked around and saw Torres pointing to a scanner. "Matched nutrients from your blood sample," he said. Softly, "This one is safe for you." Her mouth dropped open. "You?" "Scanned my blood to find food I can eat." He nodded. "That's what friends do." "Friends," she repeated, tasting the word. It felt odd on her tongue, but not painful. Jenna waved her over to sit by the fire again. Mark held up the tablet, with more Earth images, animals, oceans, music videos. Ayura laughed at the way humans danced, arms flailing like wingless birds. It was foolish, but it made her smile. Then, from the corner of the cave, a sound came sharp and short. Ayura jumped, her body tense, instinct kicking in. Mark stood quickly, weapon half-drawn. Torres scanned the cave wall. "Relax," he said. "Just a temperature shift, caves expanding." But Ayura didn't relax. She had grown up in a world where danger never made noise without reason. And something about this cave, something beyond the walls, felt wrong still. She looked at the three humans again. They weren't like her people. They weren't like the stories either. They were something else. Maybe something better. The forbidden past asterisk. Ayura screamed in her sleep. Her breath was short. Her arms pulled tight around her knees, and her skin glowed faintly purple in the dark. Torres woke first, rushing to her side with soft hands and calming words, but she didn't understand him. She was still trapped inside the dream, in her mind. She saw metal cages and fire. She saw humans with empty eyes and bloody hands, their mouths opened wide with sharp teeth. Laughing as her people screamed, she saw her little brother taken by shadows, his voice fading into silence. Mark touched her shoulder gently. "Ayura," he whispered, "you're safe." Her eyes snapped open, wet with tears. She looked around, confused, then gasped as her memory caught up. This cave, the humans, the food, they were real, not a trap, not a dream. "I saw them again," she said, her voice shaking. "The ones from the legends." Mark nodded slowly. "You've seen them before, not real ones," she whispered. "Only stories." Mark sat beside her as Torres handed her a warm drink. Jenna stayed back, silent. Her hands rested on her knees, eyes sharp, watching every word. Ayura stared into the cup, the steam rising in front of her face. "When I was young, I listened to the elders speak of humans," she said. "They said your kind feeds on alien children, that you steal dreams from the minds of the weak, that your touch burns our skin." Torres blinked. "That's horrible. That's all we were taught," she said. "No one ever saw a human and returned. Anyone who tried to speak of peace was called a traitor." Mark looked down at his boots, then back at her. "Then why didn't you run?" Ayura gave a bitter smile. "I tried, but my leg was broken when I fell from the cliffs. I thought if you found me, death would be quick." The fire crackled softly between them, filling the space where none of them knew what to say. The truth was heavier than the rocks outside, heavier than fear, heavier than wounds. "Have you ever seen your kind do this?" Torres asked gently, pointing to her bandaged side. Fix a wound for someone not like them. Aira shook her head. No, they would have left me there. Mark stood and walked over to the tablet. He tapped a few buttons and brought up a recording video. Clips from Earth, children of many species playing together. A human man helping an alien elder across a flooded street. A nurse putting a blanket on a trembling reptilian child. He handed the device to Aira. She held it like it might hurt her. Her eyes scanned the moving pictures. Her fingers tightened. When she saw laughter instead of screams, comfort instead of chains. These are not fakes. Jenna said, these are real. We brought these to prove Earth is not what your leaders say it is. Aira whispered. Why would they lie to us? Because if you saw the truth, Mark said, you wouldn't hate us. She looked away, her eyes wet again. They made us fear you so we would stay obedient. So we would stay afraid, Torres said, and they used that fear to control. You, Aira, nodded slowly. Her whole life had been built on warnings and fear. Her brother had tried to learn human words once, but he was taken by the garters the next day. No one ever spoke his name again. You were never the monsters. She whispered, we were just told you were. Mark sat beside her again. We don't blame you. We just want peace. She looked at him, truly looked. Not through the eyes of fear, but through the silence that comes after pain. His eyes were tired, but not cruel. His hands strong, but never raised to harm. I don't know what I believe anymore. She said, but I want to learn. Torres smiled. That's enough. Suddenly. The comlink crackled. All four of them turned their heads. Mark rushed to the gear bag, lifting the receiver. Static filled the line. Then, a broken voice. Came through Alpha Team. Respond. Unidentified ship approaching fast. Signatures unknown. Mark's face turned cold. It's not command, he said. They found us. Who? Ask Jenna. Aira's face went pale. The Valerie Garters, she whispered. They hunt those who break the rules. If they find me with you, you'll all be killed. Torres stood quickly. We need to hide. No, Aira said. You. Need to run. Leave me here. We're not leaving you, Mark said firmly. Not after everything. Aira stared at him. Why would you risk your lives for me? Because you're not just an alien, he said. You're Aira. A pause followed, deep and still. As the sound of engines echoed faintly in the distance, louder each second. Aira stood up, legs shaking but strong. Her past had taught her fear. But now something else was growing in her chest. Something new: hope, shadows on the moon. The wind outside the cave changed. It no longer whispered like before, it roared, as if the moon itself had opened its mouth to scream. Aira stood just inside the entrance, her eyes glowing softly in the dark, staring up at the sky. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and her bones felt it before her brain did. A blue streak tore across the sky like a scar. Burning low and fast, it wasn't a meteor, it was a ship. And she knew that shape by heart. Valerie Garter-class patrol vessel. Their armor always looked like sharpened glass, cold and unbreakable. Their orders were simple: kill any traitor. Who trusted a human? Mark ran up behind her, scanning the ship with his wrist device. It's heading straight for us, he said, voice low. They're scanning, Aira whispered. They'll detect my energy signature. Torres and Jenna appeared from the back of the cave, carrying gear and supplies. Can we run? Jenna asked. No, Aira said quickly. Their ships are faster than shadows, and they don't miss. Mark frowned. Then we prepared to defend. Aira turned to him, shocked. You don't understand. They won't ask questions. They'll shoot the cave with plasma and turn it to ash. He didn't blink. Then we make sure you survive. Aira's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Not even her own people. Humans were supposed to save themselves first. That's what the story said. And yet, here they were, digging into rocky walls, placing camouflage netting, scanning exit tunnels. Torres handed her a small device. Emergency shield. If it gets bad, activate this and stay behind it. Jenna handed her a pack of rations. You'll need strength. Aira clutched both tightly, her hands shaking. You're giving me tools to live, not weapons to fight. That's what we do, said Mark. We protect. The ship landed half a mile away, its landing gear digging into the frozen surface like claws. The ground vibrated with each step the guarders took. Black boots crunching across the moon's skin. Aira could hear them inside her skull metal voices speaking in codes. Armored hands gripping death. She crouched behind the fire pit, watching through a crack in the rocks. Her heart pounded as 5 tall figures came into view, all covered in blue armor with glowing red visors. Their rifles hummed low like angry beasts. One of them raised a scanner. Life detected, he said. 3 human pulses, 1 Valerie female. Confirm identity, said the leader, whose voice cut like ice. A red beam passed across the rocks and returned to the scanner. Confirmed. Subject 720 Torira. Daughter of Valari High Council, Aira gasped. They know who I am. Your royalty. Torres whispered. I was, she said. Now I'm a crime. The guarders moved closer. Rifles aimed at the cave mouth. Mark signaled silently to his team. Jenna positioned herself behind a sharp bend with a stun grenade. Torres stayed near. Aira, ready to pull her into the back tunnel if things broke down. Mark knelt by the entrance. Weapon raised but heart steady. The first guarder stepped inside, scanning the darkness. Surrender the traitor and be spared, he said. Resist, and you will all be erased. Mark stepped forward, his body blocking the narrow path. She's under my protection, he said. You'll have to go through me. The guarder paused, head tilting slightly. Why would a human protect a threat? Because she's not a threat. Mark said, she's the reason peace might still be possible. The guarder raised his weapon. Peace is treason, before he could fire. Jenna threw the stun grenade. A flash of white light filled the cave, followed by a high-pitched crack. The guarders stumbled back, blinded for just seconds, but that was enough. Mark tackled the lead guarder, slamming his weapon aside. Torres pulled Aira down the back tunnel, yelling for her to move. Jenna fired 2 stun shots into the second soldier's chest plate, buying them more time. Aira ran with them, breathing hard, her legs burning. Every step echoed with the memory of fear, but now it was joined by something stronger. The will to protect. She wasn't just running for herself, she was running. Because they believed in her, they reached the end of the tunnel and climbed out onto a high ridge. Behind them, the cave collapsed in a controlled blast set by Jenna. Dust filled the air as the moon swallowed their hiding place. The guarders were regrouping, setting up a perimeter around the wrecked cave. But they hadn't seen the escape route. Not yet. Aira looked back one last time. Her homeworld soldiers were hunting her, but humans were shielding her with their own lives. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. We can't go back there, I know, she said. But I also know this my people will never stop hunting us. Not unless the truth is told, Jenna nodded. Then we tell it loud. Aira turned toward the rising Valare sun, golden and sharp behind the dust. Let them come, she said. I'm not afraid anymore, for the first time. She wasn't just a runaway or a prisoner. She was something else now, a witness. The trial, Aira stood in chains, her wrists glowing with blue cuffs that pulsed with quiet electricity. The courtroom was carved into crystal cold, shining walls that reflected her pale face over and over again, every angle of her shame repeated. Back at her, the crowd of Valerie leaders sat high above. unmoving like statues, and behind her, 3 humans waited in silence, also bound. Mark's lip was cut. Jenna's arm was wrapped in a sling, and Torres was bruised but alert. None of them had spoken since being captured. None of them begged for mercy. Ira looked back once and saw no anger in their eyes, only trust. It cut deeper than any weapon. The High Council sat in a tall arc, each wearing a hood shaped like a different ancient beast. Her mother sat at the center, face hidden, voice colder than the stars. You were found in the company of humans. You shared food, protection, and blood with them. Do you deny this? I do not, Ira said firmly. You called them friends. The elder on the left asked, I call them more than that. She replied, I call them brave. Whispers filled the room like falling snow. Soft but endless, the council raised a hand, silencing the crowd. Her mother's voice returned. You are the daughter of Valari's highest line, and yet you chose to kneel beside those who eat the stars. That story is a lie, Ira said loudly, her voice echoing through the crystal. I saw it with my own eyes. They heal, they sink, help, they protect. They saved me when you would have let me die. A snarl rose from one of the guards. She is poisoned, corrupted by human tricks. Then let me show you, Ira said. She motioned toward Torres, who nodded. A hidden device in his boot activated with a sharp beep. A projection lit the air above them, images from their time on the moon. Human hands bandaging her wound. Torres scanning her blood to find safe food. Mark standing in front of her with a weapon to protect her from his own kind. The crowd fell silent. Eyes wide, mouths closed. For a moment, no one could argue with. The truth floating in the air. These are not monsters, Ira said. These are people. One counselor stood, his eyes burning. You would have us erase centuries of law based on a few kind gestures. I would have you erase lies, Ira replied, so others won't grow up fearing shadows. Her mother leaned forward, the hood sliding back to show her sharp cheekbones and silver hair. Her eyes looked tired, not cruel. You were always stubborn, even as a child. You taught me to speak my truth, Ira said. Now I am. Another voice called from the crowd, a younger council member with gold tattoos down her neck. What if the girl is right? What if we were wrong? That path leads to chaos, another hissed. If the humans are not our enemies, then who are we? Mark stepped forward, his chains clinking. You are survivors, he said, just like us. We've both built our stories on fear. Maybe it's time we build something else. The guards moved closer, but Ira raised her hands. Let him speak. The elder counselor shook his head. The law is clear. Sharing blood with humans is a crime punishable by exile or death. Ira lifted her chin. Then I accept exile, but not for shame, for hope. Torres stepped beside her. You won't walk it alone, Jenna joined. Then we go where she goes. The council sat in silence for a long time. Then her mother raised her hand. The room froze. The law demands punishment, she said. But it also allows for change. Gasps filled the room. Ira couldn't believe her ears. Her mother continued. We will not punish these humans, or my daughter. Instead, we will open debate, review the ancient texts, speak with the elders. Of science and truth, another counselor protested. You invite rebellion? No, her mother said. I invite light. Ira's chains were removed. She rubbed her wrists, her heart pounding. Her people didn't cheer, but they didn't turn away either. That silence was louder than applause. She turned to the humans. You didn't have to stay. Mark shrugged. Didn't feel right to leave? Torres grinned. Also, I kinda want to see how your food tastes when it's not emergency rations. Jenna smiled. We're not just visitors anymore. Ira walked out of the courtroom with her head held high. The sun above Valari was brighter than before, or maybe it was just her eyes. The truth had begun its journey, and it had started. With 3 strangers who chose kindness over fear, and she would never forget that. Asterisk, the choice. Asterisk, the fire council chamber was silent. Every torch on the wall burned without smoke, giving the air a strange glow. Aira stood in the center circle. Her bare feet on the stone symbol of unity, 2 hands, one human, one Valari, carved long ago, and buried under layers of hate. Now it had been uncovered for the first time in centuries. Across from her stood her mother. Robe heavy with tradition, eyes filled with questions. Around them were elders, warriors, and scholars, and at the far edge of the circle mark, Torres and Jenna, unchained but watched by armed guards. The people are divided, her mother said calmly. Half demand your banishment. The other half, young, loud, and full of dreams, demand change. Aira's voice was steady. Then let them choose with truth, not fear. Mark stepped forward. Let me speak. A guard raised his weapon. But Aira nodded, and the order was given. Mark entered the circle, his boots echoing softly on the stone. He looked up at the rows of Valar faces, most unreadable, some curious, a few openly hostile. I am not here to conquer, he said. I am not here to trick, poison, or steal. He paused, his voice low but firm. I am here because someone gave me her trust, and I couldn't walk away from that. Jenna followed him into the circle, holding a small data drive. This holds every record of our time. With Aira medical scans, translation notes, personal logs, we want you to see everything. We have nothing to hide. The high-technic priest approached and took the drive, walking back slowly to load it into the archive tria, massive organic computer grown from Valari soil and root. As it hummed to life, holograms danced in the air footage of Aira, laughing for the first time, bleeding, healing, learning to speak earthwords, shielding the humans with her own body. The chamber watched in silence. Even the torches seemed to grow quieter when the images stopped. Aira stepped back into the center. You asked who I am, she said. I am the daughter of a leader, the child of a broken system, and the student of 3 strangers who showed me a better way. The crowd shifted. One elder stood, her voice sharp. What if they are few among many? What if most humans are not like them? Torres replied gently. Then help us teach the rest. That's how peace begins, one person at a time. The council whispered, debated, hesitated. Her mother raised her hand again. Silence returned. You have a choice, she said, looking at Mark. Go back to Earth and never return, or stay here among those who still fear you, and risk your life every day. Mark looked at Jenna and Torres, then at Aira. Then I stay. Torres nodded. Where she walks, we walk, Jenna added. If one step forward brings peace, we'll take it. Aira stared at them, heart full. You choose exile. No, Mark said. We choose you. A ripple passed through the crowd. Elders leaned into each other. Some nodded, others scowled. Then something unexpected happened. Small child walked into the chamber, alone. His scales were still, soft, his eyes wide. He walked to Aira and handed her a single white stone, a Valari symbol of new beginning. More children followed, one by one, placing stones at Aira's feet. The elders couldn't stop them. The guards didn't move. It was too late. The future had chosen sides. Her mother stepped down from the platform, removed her ceremonial hood, and placed it into Aira's hands. Then lead, she whispered. But never forget how heavy peace truly is. Aira nodded slowly. I won't. The humans were no longer guests, nor prisoners, nor myths. They had become something stronger, witnesses of change, seeds of something old and new. The chamber doors opened and sunlight poured in, touching the old stone symbol beneath Aira's feet. For the first time in Valari memory, Humans and aliens stood under one roof, not with weapons drawn, but hands open, and in that quiet moment, the choice was made. Together. A new truth. Ayera stepped onto the speaker's platform with slow, careful steps. Her heart beat like a drum. Not from fear, but from the weight of what was coming. The plaza was full. Thousands of Veilari citizens standing together, not in silence, not in anger, but in stillness. Listening. For the first time in living memory, a human ship hovered openly in Veilari's sky. Not being chased away, not under fire, a banner floated beside it, two symbols drawn in silver light. One human. One Veilari, joined in a circle. Mark stood beside her. Not wearing armor, not carrying a weapon, just a soft gray shirt and calm eyes. Jenna and Torres were nearby, organizing supplies for the new Unity station being built at the edge of the city. Children watched them with curious eyes, no longer afraid, no longer hiding. Ayera raised her voice to the crowd. I was born into a world of warnings. We were told that humans were beasts with smiles. Creatures of sharp hunger and false kindness. Murmurs rose, but quickly faded as she lifted her hand. I believed those stories until the day I was wounded and left alone. I waited to die. And instead, humans saved me. She turned and pointed at Mark. He could have walked away. They all could have. But they chose to help, to stay, to protect. Mark didn't speak. His eyes were wet, but he let her speak for both of them. Ayera's voice shook with emotion. They gave me food, water, safety. They gave me truth without asking for anything in return. Some of the older citizens looked uncertain. Some frowned, but others nodded. Especially the younger ones, especially those who had seen the evidence. I do not ask you to forget the past, Ayera said, but I ask you to let go of lies. I ask you to open your hearts to a truth that frightened our ancestors. Because it was powerful, not dangerous, she took a step forward. We are not alone in the stars, and we never were. A young Veilari girl raised her hand in the crowd. But what if they betray us later? Ayera smiled softly. Then we face it together. Like equals, not enemies. Later that evening, Ayera sat beneath the night sky on the tower steps of Unity Station. The stars above were quiet, distant, and warm. Mark joined her, sitting beside her without a word. He handed her a warm drink, human cocoa. She sipped it and blinked in surprise. It's sweet, she said. He chuckled. Yeah, that's kind of our thing. Ayera looked out over the land. New lights, new voices. Human engineers helping Veilari farmers grow crops in poor soil. Veilari healers teaching humans how to use moss-based medicine. Two cultures finally sharing instead of fearing. I never thought I'd live to see this, she whispered. Neither did I, Mark said. But you made it happen. No, she said, we did. A breeze passed through the trees below, carrying music, laughter, strange instruments. Even a mix of both species, singing in broken languages that somehow fit together. Ayera closed her eyes for a moment, letting it wash over her. She opened them again when a message came through her personal wrist link. It was from the council, marked with the highest level of authority. She opened the file and read the words. Slowly, her heart jumped, her eyes wide. What is it? Mark asked. Ayera turned to him, voice shaking. They want me to represent Veilari at the Galactic Peace Summit. His eyebrows rose. You're going to speak for your entire people. I guess I am, she said quietly. I guess. I am now the bridge. Mark smiled. Then let's build something no one can break. A few days later, Ayera stood again, this time not on a moon, not in a courtroom, but on a galactic council stage. Billions watched from across worlds, and beside her stood humans, not as saviors, not as conquerors, but as proof. Proof that kindness could survive across galaxies. Proof that fear was a weapon, but truth was stronger. She took a deep breath, looked straight into the future, and spoke clearly into the light. We are not enemies. We are not myths. We are not monsters. We are neighbors. We are voices, finally. Heard the stars didn't answer with sound, but they seemed to shine just a little brighter that day, and somewhere deep in space. On a quiet world once ruled by silence, a young Velari girl looked up, saw a human on a screen, and smiled not. In fear, but in hope, because the truth had finally arrived, and this time it had stayed.